What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Bleacher Report. This second half, holy hell. Wow. DTR, yikes. I don't think you got much longer on the roster, bud. Listen, once we found out there was going to be no Tanner McKee, and once we saw that Shedeur Sanders wasn't going to be a part of this based off of what went down in the joint practices, it was pretty much known you'll sit through painful football. There were a few things to note, though, and let's start that process now. Andrew Mukuba. Okay, I'm sitting on my couch going, Coob! Now, I don't even know if that's his nickname. I have no idea what we're going to call him, but I sure as hell love Coob. And what's impressive about him, not only did he secure a pick six, not only did he get a recovery by the line of scrimmage, but do you know how important it is for someone that has had limited time in an open competition to make the most of a moment? This would have been huge if he wasn't banged up and you were actually able to assess him in practice day after day, get reps with Vic Fangio against the A.J. Browns of the world, the Devontae Smiths of the world, the number ones on your offense. This kid has missed a lot of time not being available. He gets thrown into the fire, and in a blink of an eye, the football is attracted to him. Some guys have that magical touch where they are constantly around the football 24/7 and the football finds them. They just know how to make an impact. And when you look back at what Makuba was able to do in his college football career, there's a reason why when Howie Roseman elected to move off of C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and a lot of us wondered how you were going to create turnovers, how you were going to flip the football field, how the defense would put the offense in better positions to succeed and have shorter drives and set them up nicely, we looked at Coob. And this may just be a taste of the Andrew Mukuba experience. Think about it. He's not in rhythm. He's not in flow. This is along the lines of, go put the uniform on. Go try and show Vic Fangio that you got urgency, that this competition is not over, that Sidney Brown, who plays with his hair on fire but isn't very polished, and he plays totally not structured, he's not getting the job. Watch what I can do. I can take it to the house. This dude just locked up a tutty instantly. What do you think might happen when he gets 5, 6, 7, 8 games under his belt? Now, I do wonder if there's a correlation with the size and why he is limited with his availability, and if that's going to be a common trend. But as for right now, I'm looking super positive with my Kelly Green goggles on, thinking to myself, wait until he feels 100%, wait until his conditioning level is all the way up, and wait until he gets 3, 4, 5 games in his system where he sees the speed, he understands the NFL power, he gets more knowledge of what Vic Fangio wants to do on a day-to-day basis. If he's doing this now with a very bland, vanilla attack and with just a very basic fundamental approach, wait till he starts picking up on the advanced stuff. That's going to elevate his ability to create turnovers and multiply it by 5, 6, 7. This is just the start. This is just the foundation. No offense to Makuba, but you can only pick up so much watching from a distance or watching film or watching Reed Blankenship or watching anybody out there. When you're in the thick of it, when you're running around the football field, that's when you pick up on all this knowledge. He hasn't been able to even do that yet. So that's what gets me super pumped up. That's what tickles my fancy, is thinking about his development. And I can't sugarcoat the fact that I put a ton of stock in the fact that I think he understood there was pressure. It was mandatory for Andrew Mukuba to open back up this discussion and have the coaching staff sit around the table in an office and debate how to move forward with safety, with Sidney Brown, with him. If Makuba didn't ball out, I think we know which way this is trending. His job today was to make it difficult for Vic Fangio, Nick Sirianni, and anybody on that staff when trying to assess the right way to move forward. I loved it from Makuba. Let's get to Bennett. I was actually scared that he got injured when he made that super tough tackle and he went to the ground and he stayed on the sideline for a little bit, but he re-entered the game. I think he's better than Adoree Jackson, and I think he's better than Ringo. Ringo got picked right around the line of scrimmage, which allowed his man to get wide open, and then the Browns had a nice gain. Now, that doesn't mean Bennett's not flawed. I think the Bennett experience is probably going to come with some disappointing snaps and some mistakes and some errors. But I do think that he's the best of the three. And you saw that he had a strong pass breakup as he was solid in coverage. And that was during a nice stretch for the defense. It was Bennett who made a play on the ball. Then you had Ty Robinson in the interior, and he was doing some really awesome things. Ross Tucker was loving it, and it seemed like he was getting a pretty heavy reaction there, just loving the football instincts that Ty Robinson was displaying. And then Ojulari had a big sack. So there was that mini sequence where a few defenders made some interesting plays. All around, though, I thought it was disappointing that there were some long drives by Cleveland. Their quarterback wasn't missing any throws. You saw Jeremiah Trotter jump a nice lane, but he wasn't able to make the tackle. Ojulari got fooled and looked a bit silly on a reverse, and the Browns were able to kind of get consistency, which probably is exactly what a lot of the beat reporters were talking about when they were at the NovaCare complex throughout the joint practices, saying, yeah, the Browns are having an advantage here. The Browns are having a field day with the Birds, especially Myles Garrett, who was wrecking everybody. I didn't love the fact that it seemed like the Eagles got their asses kicked in practice. And while I don't think it's the end of the world, meaning if you have a bad couple of days in practice, does that automatically mean you're not going to have success in the regular season? No, of course not. But this is what I look forward to with the joint practices and how it relates to the preseason game we just saw is if you're going to not play certain players in the preseason because you don't want them to get injured, right? Then the time to get your reps and the time to win your battles is when you're facing the Browns number ones and the Browns starters on Tuesday, on Wednesday, when you're on the practice field. So just because you had a bad day at the office when you're working on things and when you're setting your team up with certain formations that you want to try and install, and Kevin Patullo's getting his feet wet, and there's a lot of trial and error. This is where you're supposed to fail, so you can go back and study what does work, what doesn't work, what needs help, where we do look very strong, where some of our weaknesses are, and how we can improve that on a day-to-day basis. That information is very important, and where you get that information is the middle of August in training camp. So it's not life or death. But there was once a time where preseason was go play a first half, third preseason game, get your feet under you a little bit, look good, and then let's move forward with some regular season action in a bit. Well, that now is the joint practices. So I would like to hear that they did better than what they did do throughout the week. That's just how I feel about some of the narratives coming out of the Eagles-Browns week that led up to the preseason game we just watched. But that final 2 quarters was a straight-up disaster. Something that makes me smile. Amelio Cigars. Do you know how many cigars I need tonight for me to chill? And thank the Lord I have so many. as I now show you some of the 4-packs that I have, and these are the ones that I bring golfing with my buddies when we have a foursome at the golf course. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll bring the cigars. There's only one cigar to smoke, and that is an Amelio cigar. Old school roots, new school attitude, made at the Fábrica Oveja Negra in Nicaragua. This is seriously the best cigar to ever touch your lips. Locally owned, 3rd generation. And right now, you can get 10% off your purchase by clicking the link down below in the description, utilizing the code BRODES10 for 10% off. So if you are a cigar smoker and you do play golf or you do head out to your family parties and, you know, you guys sit around the campfire, sit around the pool and enjoy something outstanding, make sure you check out Amelio Cigars. It has changed my life for the better by a billion, because I've tried some other ones out there. Nothing even compares. It is so smooth. It is so sensational. It is so dynamic. Oh my God. I need one now. Amelio Cigars. Make sure you join the family today. That final 2 quarters was a straight up disaster. DTR stinks. I want nothing to do with him. I don't want him on this roster whatsoever. I think it's pretty apparent that Kyle is going to be your 3rd string. Think about it from Tanner McKee's perspective. Of course, everybody wants to start, but my man is so locked in to that number 2 that he's got a towel around his neck when he's walking up and down the sidelines. Do you know how cool it is, I'm sure, when you finally are established as someone who doesn't have to go out there and compete in the hot heat, okay, in the battle? You're in the trenches in the 3rd quarter of a preseason game. That is the worst scenario you could ever imagine being in if you are an NFL player trying to survive. Here's Tanner McKee back up with just the easy, chill look with the towel around his neck. Hey, Kyle, go have fun out there, dude. And listen, Kyle made a couple of throws. I thought the offense was going to be hard to judge in general today, but I thought Ainias Smith had a really awesome touchdown catch. And you know what he reminds me of? He just reminds me of someone with a ceiling that is interesting, but still very raw. But I'm curious what he looks like as he continues to gain experience, as he continues to be in a room with A.J. Brown, with Devontae, even with Jahan Dotson. You could pick up on so many little details of the craft with those 3 guys. And if Ainias Smith is just watching and studying and learning and then taking it to the practice field and around Jalen Hurts every day and just picks up on all those things that those men bring to the table, I think he can really blossom into something. There's an interesting skill set there with Ainias Smith, and it applies to the Johnny Wilsons of the world as well. Different skill set, obviously, completely different receivers. And I think Ainias Smith has a little bit, how's the right way to say this? Johnny Wilson has the contested, I'm a big guy, I can go up and get it feel. Ainias Smith has more to his all-around game that intrigues me, where I know what Johnny Wilson's going to be about, and I know what his role and ceiling can be if he maximizes that strength. Ainias Smith, there's so many different layers to the discussion of what can be if he excels. That's a long-term projection. That's more of a big picture thing. That's not Super Bowl back-to-back, let's go for another championship run sort of storyline. But some of these preseason takeaways are going to be more of the back end of the roster when a lot of the ones aren't playing. So that's just more of a big picture view for me on what maybe the Ainias Smith experience brings. How about Jahad Campbell? Jahad Campbell on the first drive had a nice blitz where he was able to just, boom, go right out of a cannon, right from the rip, and he was able to get to the quarterback, which I thought obviously was a pretty impressive thing to see. And Vic Fangio getting creative, getting unique, and pushing all sorts of crazy buttons with Jihad Campbell, whether he lines up with pass rush ability, whether he's sending him as a blitzer, whether he's in coverage and he's running around the football field 24/7. In a way, I feel Andrew Mukuba is always going to be glued to the football. He's always going to be around the football, just like Cooper DeJean did last season. Well, let's add Jihad Campbell out there too. And by the way, Zach Bond does it too. So there's just going to be waves of maybe 4 or 5 different defenders that are constantly around the football. That will overwhelm you. That will cause a lot of problems. That will be a pain in your ass, and it will be constantly annoying to deal with. And that's super exciting to think about. Vic is going to have to work through some pains early on, but once everything starts to align, and once you put the puzzle pieces together, I think it could be something special. I do. And let's talk about this pass rush, because Ojulari is flirting his name in there, here and there, and getting to the quarterback here and there. And I think that's what Ojulari's role is going to be. It's not going to be overwhelming as a starter, and he's going to be a fresh new face that's helping with some of the guys that left, and he's just going to pop insanely. There was once a time I had some thoughts that maybe he could be that. And I'm not ruling it out, because when Jalen Carter's on the field, everything else opens up. And that's my main takeaway, number one, of anybody complaining that the pass rush just isn't getting home and isn't creating enough spark and isn't getting into the backfield enough. The presence of Jalen Carter changes everything. When you have other teams circling Jalen Carter 73 different times in film study and making it clear this guy cannot beat us or we're screwed, then there's more space for Ojulari, there's more space for certain guys, and you'll see even more of a presence from some of them. But Ojulari might end up being a 5-sack guy, 5.5-sack guy, which is a role to fulfill on this roster. I think he may solidify himself in that role. That's what he's doing here, as he's having a late surge at the back end of camp. And then, obviously, his name on the broadcast was mentioned a few times. Do not forget that when you study some of these names that are out there that you would like more from, Uche, Ojulari, they've been around the league for a bit, but they're not game wreckers. They're not guys that are just going to beat people up one-on-one over and over and over and over and over again, even in preseason. They benefit off the elite. They benefit off the superstar. And that's just the truth. And it's not as if Ojulari went up against a stiff, by the way, when he's able to get home. Guys start a lot of games. So it's not fourth-string offensive linemen that they can't beat. It just is the nature of it. If you expected Uche, because he had one good year with the New England Patriots a handful of years ago, to just put his hand in the dirt and completely explode and annihilate everybody right off the line of scrimmage all the time in preseason, then I think maybe your expectations were wrong. Those style of players who come in waves, it's all predicated off of penetration from number 98. It's all based off of Jordan Davis and Ojomo, who even Lane Johnson. So we heard from Mailata earlier in camp. We heard from Lane Johnson as well. Let me tell you something. The bar that's being set for Ojomo is no joke. You don't have to go out there and openly state that Ojomo is this serious weapon and this incredible dog and this guy in the trenches who is ridiculous, because then you're sort of putting it on high alert. And Lane Johnson's been around forever. You're not just going to say those words about a young kid if he wasn't ready to back it up, if he wasn't ready to support it. So the reason why I bring that up is I trust Lane Johnson's awareness after being around this town for as long as he has. And if he feels obligated to give him the public 2 thumbs up, this guy is something awesome, and this guy's going to help us create all sorts of havoc in the trenches, then it's because it's really going to happen. It's because Lane Johnson is a smart man and knows what works and what doesn't work. So I'm trusting Lane Johnson. Eagles all-pro tackle Lane Johnson 3 days ago says third-year defensive tackle Ajomo is special. Take it from me. He's the real deal. That's the quote. Take it from me. He's the real deal. 23 years old, by the way. Whew. Come on, man. Got a Nolan Smith out there. Building off of last year. Building off of that Packers postseason game. Building off of just an entire season to learn from BG, who went through a very similar story early in his career. I like where this team's at. All right, listen, something I'm not annoyed with at all is Green Lawn Fertilizing, because they are the best in the business. Based in the Philadelphia area and best in market. Experts in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and extremely knowledgeable. So much so that they've created their own custom blend that will have your lawn recovering. And I needed it big time because I was not paying attention to my lawn at all. And then I realized I got to do something. All right, I'm a grown man. I have children. I got a family. I need my lawn to look gorgeous. That is a staple of being a man of the house and a staple of a homeowner. And I was just a fool. I wasn't paying attention. But I went to the experts who educated me and showed me the treatments that I had to do to get it booming and blooming again. So they sat down with me and they said, this is step one. This is treatment one. It's going to take this long, and then we can start treatment two, which then does this. And treatment three and treatment four. And now my aeration process is going to start this fall. And I'm super excited to see the progress. It really is a cool journey to watch. So Green Lawn Fertilizing is here to help. If you click the link down below in the description, you get 50% off your first two treatments. That's 50% off your first two treatments. Do not be a fool and join the Green Lawn Fertilizing family today. Now, you might be a little aggravated with some of the defensive series or whatnot, but wait until Vic Fangio gets everything into place. Right now, you're looking at all the puzzle pieces, and it's all spread out on the table. You got to start putting them together. The one big area of concern, I think, at this point is just what are you going to do on outside corner? And it's funny, I heard an interesting debate. If you were in Howie Roseman's brain, which would be a pretty electric place to be, do you think he feels I shouldn't have let Darius Slay go? Now, the simple answer would be, do you think it was a mistake to not re-sign Isaiah Rodgers? Did they expect to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers, but it didn't happen, and then they had to zig a little bit and zigzag? It's possible. I wouldn't be shocked if you hooked him up to a lie detector test, how he admits, I didn't see a world where we didn't bring Isaiah Rodgers back, and now we got to figure it out. But in the chat here, Ryan asks or says, I think Bennett is the starter at CBJ. I do too. But I really think it's more because Adoree Jackson and Ringo aren't cutting it more than it is Bennett is awesome. But I do like the buy low, high reward type of trade. For example, if Bennett maximizes his greatness, he is a starting corner in the NFL. If Booker, who you traded to the Raiders, maximizes his ceiling, I think he's a rotational defensive tackle. So that's what I mean by low risk, high reward type of deal. You're never going to get burned because you let Booker go and now your organization is screwed. But if you lose an outside corner, that could be detrimental to your franchise. The Raiders can be screwed thinking about needing to figure out a corner position. Now, Raiders fans are trying to make it seem, well, he slid down the depth chart and blah, 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 blah. You could have assessed wrong. And I do think Bennett is the number two, but it's going to come with needing patience. And what I mean is, I think Bennett is going to screw up. I think Bennett is going to make mistakes. I think Bennett is beatable. But I think he's also your best option to hold down the fort. And I think he can hold down the fort. You know what? Maybe Isaiah Rodgers could be a good comp here. And not exactly the same player. It's not what I'm saying. But when Isaiah Rodgers was out there, you could beat Isaiah Rodgers. He could also do good enough where he's okay. That was Isaiah Rodgers to me. Definitely beatable. Definitely made mistakes. But definitely can hang. I think that's Bennett. With the hope, with maybe Christian Parker, with Nick Sirianni, with some of these other guys on the staff, Vic Fangio, that you can tweak his game and get it more polished where he's better than okay consistently. Ryan continues here in the chat and says, I think you had to give Ringo the shot by letting Isaiah Rodgers leave. But Ringo is just not what we thought. Listen, I don't think it's crazy before we saw anything in training camp to see if Ringo can do it because of his intriguing attributes and his intriguing skill set. And for as much as he's been here, he's been able to soak up a ton of information and watch guys like Slay and watch Quinyon. And yeah, I mean, at some point, hey, let's see what you got here, kid. And he clearly is cracking. I guess that's the most disappointing part is he's not even showing signs of strength. It's just straight up, this is too much for me and it's overwhelming. And that's what sucks. That's almost a slap in the face to Howie. I gave you this chance. If you go out there and battle and you give it your all and it's a super close matchup and you're playing really well, but someone else beats you out and you just got a healthy competition, that's a different story. But this is almost, dude, this wore you down so much that you're not even in the dogfight anymore. We had to go out and make a trade. You know, we had to give up on Booker, who we like, because you're not even legitimately fighting for this. I think it's pretty shocking on how bad he has been. My take on it. Highway Robbery says preseason equals Brodes is overreacting. What am I overreacting about? What am I overreacting about? I think Makuba's done something strong. I think Bennett, Robinson, and Ojolari and Campbell and Anaya Smith did some things out there. There's only so much you can do with this tape and with this game film. But I'm just pointing out the standard takeaways. Chris says Ringo could still be him. He had to face Jamar Chase. Nah. See, I think you're being blinded for some reason by the fact that it was Jamar Chase. That was a very fundamental play last week where all you got to do is make the tackle. If Jamar Chase catches the ball, he catches the ball. The route he took, the inability to play tough, not wanting the moment. He looks like a fractured man out there without a lot of confidence. Then you saw his body language on the sideline. You saw his body language and his remarks with the post-game presser. Now, I do think there's something to his game, but I don't know if he's mentally tough enough to accept this role right now. It's clearly beating him down. He clearly isn't accepting the challenge enough. They had to go out and trade him or trade for someone else. That's Howie Roseman admitted. It was how short into this. They weren't playing any games. They just said, we're doing it. We're doing it. And they gave up Booker, who I think they like. So that's how badly they went after it. That's how I see it. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me as we discuss Eagles preseason. We got one more game coming up next week. I'll talk to you on a live stream then. Go Birds.